Deep in the San Juan backcountry, the wilderness turns hostile after nightfall. Towering ridges loom like black walls, and the air carries a weight that presses on every breath. Campfires burn low as shadows stretch unnaturally wide, while a thunderous cry shakes the silence of the valley. Tracks larger than any boot carve the soil, leading to places no man dares follow. Whatever roams these mountains is not a ghost story. It's a predator of flesh, fury, and unrelenting hunger. The San Juan Mountains are known for their jagged peaks, but in the high passes, it isn't the wind or snow that carries the strongest voice, it's the whispers. Travelers who dare to cross those ridges at night report soft murmurs too faint to make out, but chilling enough to halt them in their tracks. The sound seems to drift along the cliffs, echoing from nowhere until it feels like the mountains themselves are speaking. Some dismiss it as wind funneling through stone, yet those who linger claim the voices call their names. At dusk, the high pass turns to shadow faster than the valleys below. The sun dips behind serrated ridges, and the cold rushes in like a predator. It is in those moments, when the sky still glows but the ground is dark, that the whispers grow sharpest. Men describe them as overlapping, dozens of voices at once, blending into a chorus of warnings. None can remember the exact words afterward, only the sense of dread that roots deep into their bones. The few who travel alone up there often break into a run, convinced someone follows just out of sight. Their boots crunch on gravel, echoing loudly, and yet another sound lingers beneath, the soft drag of something heavier, slower, keeping pace. When they spin to confront the stalker, they see nothing but thin air and endless cliffs. The whispers die with the movement, as if mocking their panic, then return as soon as they begin to walk again. Hunters speak of nights when their camps pitched near the pass were filled with unease. A fire that burned strong would sputter for no reason, smoke blowing low to the ground as though pushed by unseen hands. The forest surrounding them remains silent. No owls, no crickets, no coyotes, and in that terrible silence, the faint whispers wove between the trees. Some men swore they carried words in a language too old to recognize. Others swore they were the voices of lost friends. The high pass holds scars of its own. Trees bent unnaturally toward the path, trunks snapped clean with no sign of lightning or storm. Travelers find these places unsettling, and they should. Often, claw marks etch into the bark, deep grooves too wide to be from bear or cat. The whispers are strongest near these signs, curling through the stillness like threads of smoke. It is as though the land itself remembers and warns the living to turn back. One tale tells of a group of miners who cut across the pass in the early 1900s. Eager to shave a day from their trek, they never made it to their claim. Weeks later, searchers found their tools and gear scattered in the rocks, but no bodies. Witnesses claim the whispers in that stretch grew so loud they seemed to drown out thought itself. Some believe the miners simply lost their minds, stepping willingly into the void. Others believe something else took them. Snow makes the pass no safer. In winter, the voices seem to drift louder, riding on icy gusts that sting the skin raw. Some say the whispers turn almost melodic, like a chant rising through the storm. Travelers who hear it grow disoriented, veering from safe trails toward sheer cliffs. Rescuers who recover the unlucky often find them frozen in strange positions, as though they died mid-step, still listening for something just out of reach. The whispers seem to choose their audience carefully. Some men walk through the pass unharmed, never hearing more than the howl of wind. Others, however, swear they feel watched the moment they set foot on the trail. For these chosen few, every step echoes back a second too late, as though someone else follows. Their shadows appear stretched, warped against the rocks, and when they look again, they vanish. To those who hear them, the voices become unavoidable. Campers have described waking suddenly in the dead of night, unsure why their eyes shot open. Then they realize the fire is cold, though no one had let it die. The night air carries no warmth, and in that silence, whispers curl close, too close. Some feel breath brush their ear, though no one stands near. A few have even answered back, screaming into the darkness. Those men rarely speak of what they heard in response. Strange offerings appear along the path, as though something leaves them behind. Broken antlers, bones stripped clean of flesh, stones arranged in crooked circles. Travelers swear the items were not there when they pitched camp, only appearing come morning. Worse, each time they stop to examine the offerings, the whispers surge into a frenzy, louder and harsher, as though angered by being noticed. Most leave quickly, too shaken to think of explanations. It is not just whispers that haunt the pass, but the weight of absence. Entire sections of trail fall into unnatural silence, where even the sound of boots crunching feels muffled. Within that silence, every heartbeat drums like thunder, and men find themselves breathing shallow, afraid to stir the stillness. Then from nowhere the whispers surge back, filling the void with cruel precision. It is as if something waits for silence, only to remind the living they are not alone. At times the voices shift in tone, low, guttural sounds that scrape the chest like claws. Hunters say they resemble growls disguised as words, rising in waves until the listener feels cornered. More than one has fled their camp in sheer terror, leaving behind gear too valuable to abandon otherwise. They say it is better to return empty-handed than risk another night where the voices grow bold enough to circle the fire. Legends passed down in mountain towns warn against speaking names aloud in the high pass. They say the whispers can mimic what they hear, throwing voices back at travelers in twisted echoes. A man calling for a friend may hear his own name, whispered back in tones that do not belong to human throats. Some dismiss this as trickery of wind, but others refuse to utter even a word while crossing. They carry their silence like armor, hoping it is enough. Stories of red eyes watching from the ridges are often tied to the whispers. Hunters claim the voices always lead their gaze upward, toward shadowed ledges where something seems to crouch just out of sight. The eyes never blink, never move until the whispers stop. Then the glow vanishes too, leaving men to wonder whether they were tricked into looking where no one was or whether the creature had already gone. The high pass is also littered with lost belongings: an abandoned boot, a snapped rifle stock, a torn coat caught on a branch. None are recent, all weather-worn, but the stories around them remain sharp. Travelers who stop to inspect them feel the whispers return in force, stronger than before. They come from behind, from above, from beneath, closing in until footsteps feel clumsy and ears burn from the weight of sound. Few linger near such relics. The whispers are not confined to night. Even under the noon sun, shadows in the past seem longer, stretched unnaturally thin. Men say they hear faint mutters just beneath the sound of their own voices, like an echo that refuses to vanish. Some claim their words are repeated a beat too late, in tones too deep or too sharp to be their own. These travelers return unsettled, eyes darting long after they leave the mountains. Local guides rarely speak of the pass, and when pressed, they grow quiet. A few admit to hearing the voices themselves, but only once and never again. They warn outsiders with clipped words: don't stay after dark, don't follow the sounds, don't stop walking. Some guides refuse to go near entirely, saying the whispers choose who to pursue, and they won't risk being chosen twice. Their warnings are clear, even if their stories remain hidden. There are tales of animals behaving strangely near the pass. Horses panic, rearing and foaming as if swarmed by unseen predators. Dogs tuck tails and refuse to move forward, whining into the fog. Even mountain lions, apex hunters of the region, avoid the trail, skirting far around as though it burns to approach. Men see this behavior and understand what they refuse to say aloud. The animals hear the whispers too. In the dead of winter, the pass is nearly impassable, yet the voices persist. Trudging through waist-deep snow, travelers sometimes stop, swearing someone called out to them. When they turn, all they see is their own trail behind, already filling with snow as though something tried to erase it. The whispers continue until the mountain takes back every footprint, leaving no evidence of their passage. It feels less like travel, more like trespass. The whispers are not always threatening. At times they sound mournful, almost pleading, like voices crying for help from somewhere unreachable. This is perhaps the most dangerous version, because it lures men closer, straying from paths toward the cliffs. More than once, rescuers have found signs of travelers slipping, sliding, or falling after chasing what they believed were human calls. But the cries never lead to survivors, only silence. One miner's journal described a night when the whispers grew so strong, they seemed to seep into his dreams. He woke in terror, claiming the voices were not outside but inside his own head. They filled his thoughts until he could not remember which were his and which were theirs. His entry ended abruptly that night. The journal was found near the pass, but the man was never seen again. Whispers also linger in memory. Some who cross the pass safely claim they still hear them weeks later, faintly, when they are alone. They echo in quiet rooms, in the hush of trees outside, even in the whistle of a kettle. Always soft, always fleeting, but unmistakable. The mountains, it seems, send their voices home with those foolish enough to listen. To this day, hikers tell of moments in the past where conversation falters and every man in the group falls silent at once. No one admits to hearing it first, but all know the whispers have returned. They come in waves, weaving around their ears, threading through their fear, and every time, without fail, the voices grow strongest just before nightfall, when the path becomes a ribbon of shadow stretched across the heights. The whispers of the high pass do not beg, they do not command. They remind men of their place, fragile and small against the spine of the mountains. They remind them that the peaks belong to older things that do not forgive intrusion, and when the voices fade, when silence returns, the traveler is left with one truth. He may have walked through the pass, but it is the pass that walked through him. Travelers in the San Juans often return with tales of prints too large to be dismissed, as bare too defined to be explained away by erosion. These aren't shallow impressions in dirt or snow, but grooves pressed into solid rock, as though something impossibly heavy strode across the mountains. Boot heels chip against the edges, proving the marks aren't illusions. Each time the shape is unmistakable. Massive, splayed feet, deeper than any human step. The first time many see them, disbelief is their only response. Some insist the prints must be tricks of erosion, centuries of water wearing grooves into stone. Yet geologists who examined them admitted the formations were unnaturally sharp, with edges far too clean to be the result of weather alone. Others tried dynamite to test the stone around them, but even shattered fragments revealed nothing that matched the print's strange geometry. Hunters whisper that following the trail of stone-carved tracks never ends well. Some claim the path leads off cliffs, where footprints vanish into thin air, daring men to imagine a creature capable of leaping across ravines. Others report the trail simply stops mid-slope, as if the being that made them stepped out of the world altogether. For those who choose to turn back, relief comes quickly. For those who keep following, silence is often their last companion. Miners working high ridges in the late 19th century stumbled across such tracks near abandoned shafts. They tried to measure them but found their tape insufficient. Each print stretched wider than a man's chest. Tools were left behind after nights of guttural cries echoed down the mountains, the prints circling their camp by morning. No records explain why they abandoned such promising claims, but locals know the answer: fear left them no choice. Campers describe unease when they pitch their tents near the prints. Fires seem reluctant to burn brightly, and even when flames rise, shadows bend oddly toward the tracks. The ground feels wrong underfoot, heavier, as though the prints radiate some pressure long after being made. Some visitors swear they hear faint vibrations when they stand in them, like echoes of an ancient stride still moving below the stone. Few linger long enough to test it twice. Stories circulate about footprints carved into stone in places where no man should walk, sheer cliff faces, overhangs, and boulders lodged deep in gorges. How such impressions appeared in surfaces untouched for centuries remains unexplainable. Scientists dismiss them as fakes, but who would risk their life scaling cliffs just to etch hoaxes no one was meant to see? The more likely answer chills the bone. Something beyond human scale crossed those heights effortlessly. Even when snow covers the mountains, the stone prints remain visible, clean and free of ice, as though the ground itself rejects them. Skiers have stumbled across such bare spots, patches of melted snow outlining monstrous feet where no warmth should exist. Many refuse to cross them, circling wide as if afraid the earth itself might open beneath. Those who dare to step inside report cold so sharp it cuts straight to the marrow. Local ranchers whisper about livestock driven to panic near the tracks. Horses refuse to cross them, pulling hard against reins until riders dismount. Dogs whimper and tuck tails, growling at nothing in particular, their fur standing on end. The prints may be empty, but to animals they are wounds in the stone, carrying the scent of something that should not exist. When animals sense what men ignore, the wise pay attention. Some mountaineers believe the footprints aren't marks of travel but warnings. They say the shapes were pressed deliberately, carved by something powerful enough to stamp messages into the earth itself. Whether those messages are territorial markers or silent threats is debated endlessly. Yet all agree on one point: wherever the prints are found, danger soon follows. The mountains themselves seem to grow sharper, crueler, more hostile to life in those places. Legends suggest the prints move. Villagers who charted them years apart claim their positions change, appearing where none were before. Trails that once ended abruptly extend further, when revisited, stretching into new territory. Some insist this proves the creature is still alive, still pacing the ridges when no one is watching. Others wonder if the mountains themselves shift around the prints, unwilling to let them vanish. Both possibilities are equally unsettling. Night brings its own horror to those who sleep near the stone tracks. Winds carry deep, rumbling groans that sound like a beast breathing just out of sight. When dawn breaks, the prints seem fresher, their edges sharper, as though remade under cover of dark. Some men awake to find smaller tracks circling their camp alongside the massive ones, as though something dragged its claws through the dirt to accompany the stone-bound giant. There are accounts of men who placed offerings inside the prints: tobacco, coins, or simple carvings left in respect. Some returned later to find the gifts gone, the prints deeper than before. Others vanished entirely, their camps left untouched, except for the footprints surrounding them. It seems the stone-carved marks are not inert, but alive in some dreadful way, feeding on recognition, punishing those who treat them lightly. One mountaineer wrote in his journal of standing inside a footprint and feeling the earth hum beneath his boots. The vibration rose through his body, rattling his bones until he staggered back in terror. That night, he dreamed of being carried across the peaks in strides larger than valleys, each step shaking the world below. He awoke convinced he had not dreamed at all, but walked within the gate of the creature itself. Children in nearby towns grow up, warned not to follow any trail of giant prints, even if curiosity overwhelms them. Parents tell stories of men who did not return, their names struck from memory to keep others safe. School teachers discourage exploration of the passes where the prints lie, but kids whisper about them anyway, daring each other to climb higher, to prove they exist. Few ever go, and fewer still come back unchanged. Not all prints resemble feet. Some show claw marks dragging across the stone, as though the creature lost balance or deliberately raked its talons along the surface. The gouges run deep enough to catch fingers, cutting sharp lines into granite that no tool can replicate. Those marks suggest the being has more than feet. It has weapons built into its body, tools of destruction etched forever into the rock. Even the bravest hunters avoid setting snares near the footprints. They say the land around them goes quiet, emptied of game. No deer wander, no rabbits stir, no birds roost in nearby trees. It is as though every animal knows the space is claimed, marked as a hunting ground by something higher on the food chain. Men who ignore the warning return empty-handed, lucky to return at all. Some scholars theorize that the footprints belong to something ancient, older than men in the mountains. They argue the prints may be remnants of a time when creatures of impossible scale roamed freely, and what people call Bigfoot is only their descendant. If true, the stone prints are not warnings but echoes, messages from the past resurfacing in the present. But if so, why do they continue to appear fresh, as if remade every season? Those who photograph the prints often find their images corrupted. Photos develop with smears across the frame, or prints that appear smaller, distorted, as though the stone resisted being captured. Digital images sometimes vanish entirely from memory cards, replaced by static. The footprints seem to deny reproduction, existing only in the moment, forcing men to return to see them with their own eyes. The mountain ensures its secrets stay personal. Campfire tales tell of travelers who followed the prints too far, into places where compasses spun wildly and the air grew thin despite the altitude. Their companions heard roars that shook the trees, but never saw the beast itself. When they turned back, the prince led them in circles, returning to the same point again and again. The mountains twisted around them until they swore the creature itself controlled the land. On rare occasions, prints appear near streams or rivers, carved into smooth stone beds. The water runs shallow across them, but the grooves remain crisp, unfaded by centuries of rushing current. Fishermen claim the water itself bends differently around them, breaking into strange patterns like ripples that move against the flow. They avoid casting their lines there, certain that nothing natural survives in waters marked by such steps. Legends describe the prince glowing faintly under moonlight, edges shining as though filled with silver fire. No one agrees on what causes it, but those who see it never forget. The glow outlines every curve, every claw, painting the shape in terrifying clarity. It is not a sight to inspire awe, but dread, the realization that the creature who made them does not belong to the daylight world. Some insist the stone prints are not marks of passage, but doorways. They claim standing in them too long blurs the edges of the world, filling vision with fog and air with whispers. A few even say the footprints lead elsewhere, not across the mountains but out of them entirely, into places no man is meant to walk. These stories are rarely spoken loudly, for fear the paths might open again. The footprints are rarely found alone. Strange sounds accompany them. Rocks tumbling where no one stands, the echo of footsteps overhead on ridges. Men swear the prints are a promise that the being is nearby. Watching, waiting, the sense of being stalked grows unbearable, driving some into panicked retreats down the pass. When they look back, the prints remain where they were, silent but heavy with menace. To this day, mountaineers warn newcomers of the stone-carved steps. They tell them not to linger, not to measure, not to speak inside them. The footprints may be silent, but silence in the mountains carries weight. Each mark is a reminder that the land belongs to something greater, something that moves unseen through peaks and valleys. Whether Bigfoot or something older, the truth remains: stone does not lie, and the prints do not fade. The San Juans are vast, yet the footprints tie the wilderness together in eerie continuity. From high ridges to shadowed valleys, they appear again and again, reminders of a creature that claims dominion. No storm erases them, no quake cracks them away. They remain eternal and terrifying, proof etched into the very bones of the mountains. And those who stand before them realize a dreadful truth: if footprints exist, their maker still walks. The San Juan peaks rise like jagged teeth against the sky, but even they seem to tremble when the roar cuts through the valleys. It does not come like the cry of any known beast. It erupts from the earth itself, rolling across ridges like thunder that refuses to fade. Hikers freeze when they hear it, unsure if it comes from above, behind, or below. The sound feels too vast to track, as though it belongs everywhere at once. Hunters describe the roar as layered, a mix of bellow, growl, and scream. At its lowest, it rumbles like shifting stone. At its highest, it pierces like metal torn apart. Some men collapse to their knees when it strikes, clutching ears as though the noise was more inside their heads than outside. Those who survive the sound speak of ringing that lasts for days, an echo that no silence can fully smother. Animals react before men do. Elk bolt across ridges, their hooves scattering rock in frantic cascades. Birds lift from trees in swarms, blackening the sky as though fleeing a wildfire. Horses refuse to move forward, eyes rolling white as they scream and rear. Dogs cower, their howls pitiful against the unseen force. The mountains become a storm of panic long before the roar even ends. Campers have heard the roar at night, shattering sleep with its violence. Fires snap in gutters as the sound seems to steal air from the world. Some men swear the flames bend outward, as if repelled by the noise itself. In those moments, tents buckle in the windless night, and the earth shakes under bedrolls. The roar does not just pass by, it invades, pressing against every surface and every heartbeat. The roar is said to travel farther than a cannon shot, yet it carries an intimacy that feels unnatural. Even from miles away, listeners describe the sensation of something breathing against their skin, hot and damp. The cry feels alive, a declaration not just of existence, but of dominance. It warns the land that the peaks are not empty, that something monstrous claims them. No one who hears it doubts its meaning. Stay away. Older mountaineers claim the roar follows no pattern. It may erupt once in a decade or twice in a single night. Some believe it rises when men tread too close to hidden lairs. Others think it marks hunting nights when the beast moves through the valleys. The unpredictability gnaws at the nerves, for anyone might stumble into its path. The uncertainty becomes a constant shadow in the high country. When storms gather, the roar grows harder to separate from thunder. Lightning splits the sky, and often the cry follows, deeper and more terrible. Witnesses say the storm itself seems to answer it, the peaks shaking in time with the beast's declaration. Rain pounds harder, wind rips colder, and the world feels less natural, as though man has wandered into a battle of titans he cannot see. Legends speak of miners hearing the roar within tunnels, miles beneath the surface. They fled shafts half completed, dropping tools and lanterns in their panic. The sound, they said, was amplified underground, making stone walls ripple as though alive. Even after they abandoned the mines, the earth carried vibrations for days. Locals swore the mountain itself had roared, but no one dared dig there again. At times, the roar is not just sound, but pressure. Men describe their chests tightening, lungs seizing as though squeezed by unseen hands. Ears pop as if from sudden altitude change, and eyes water uncontrollably. The body rebels against the noise, treating it as poison. Those who endure too long faint outright, waking hours later with memories fragmented like broken glass. Few dare to stay once it begins again. The roar has been mistaken for avalanches, but it comes without snow, without debris, without explanation. Climbers scale ridges, only to freeze in terror when the earth shudders beneath them. They look for sliding walls of white, but nothing moves. The only evidence is the sound, vast and merciless, making even granite seem fragile. Many descend immediately, abandoning ascents years in the planning. Some say the roar is accompanied by a stench, a musk that clings to the air like rot. Campers gag, covering their mouths as though smoke has swept through. The smell lingers long after the noise dies, heavy in the lungs, coating skin with invisible residue. It reminds survivors that the roar is not abstract. It belongs to flesh, to something very real and very close. There are tales of echoes lasting far too long, bouncing between peaks until they twist into new sounds entirely. Men have heard their names carried back to them in warped tones, or the cries of loved ones long dead. These echoes drive hunters mad, sending them running across slopes in desperate confusion. By the time silence finally falls, the mountains have claimed another soul, lost in the terror of chasing shadows. Witnesses describe the roar as a warning before attacks. Hunters missing in the valleys often reported hearing it the night before they vanished. Their companions recalled how the cries seemed to circle them, moving faster than any animal could run. They awoke to shredded camps and empty bedrolls, with no blood, no struggle, just absence. It is as though the roar shakes prey loose before the strike. Some mountaineers believe the roar shakes more than mountains. It shakes memory. Men leave the valleys unable to recall routes, forgetting landmarks they crossed hours before. Maps lose meaning, trails vanish, and compasses spin. The cry seems to scramble the mind, leaving only terror intact. Survivors swear the sound itself steals direction, trapping men in loops until exhaustion delivers them. The roar has been compared to musical instruments, but not ones built by man. Drums too vast for human hands, strings stretched across mountains, horns forged from thunder. Its notes bend reality itself, rattling loose stone and shattering calm. To hear it is to feel the earth sing in a voice of rage, and no orchestra of man has ever matched its dreadful harmony. Stories tell of hunters firing rifles into the dark after hearing the cry. Bullets snapped against stone or vanished into nothing. Their sounds swallowed instantly. No cries of pain followed, no blood spilled. Instead, the roar grew louder, layered with what sounded like laughter. The men dropped their weapons in terror, certain the beast mocked their attempts. Their shots became its amusement. Campers who pray during the roar often find no comfort. Words catch in throats, swallowed by the force of the sound. Some claim their prayers are repeated back to them in guttural mimicry, a blasphemous chorus riding beneath the roar. Faith feels brittle in those moments, cracked by the realization that whatever owns the peaks hears every word and answers only in cruelty. There are accounts of the roar shaking structures apart, cabins splintered overnight, roofs caved, timbers cracked in half. Families fled into the cold, believing earthquakes had struck, yet only their homes bore damage. The trees stood tall, the ridges unbroken. They rebuilt further down the valleys, leaving the high country to whatever force destroyed without touching stone. Mountaineers whisper that the roar is tied to moonlight. On nights when the moon rises full, its glow paints the peaks silver and the cry is most likely to rise. Shadows stretch unnaturally long, and the sound seems to climb out of them, bursting into the sky. Some refuse to climb during such phases, unwilling to test the superstition. Yet those who ignored it often did not return. The roar unsettles not only men, but the land itself. Streams ripple against the flow, rocks tremble loose from cliffs, and snow shifts without falling. It is as though the peaks bend in respect, acknowledging their true master. Those who witness it understand at once, the roar is not a cry of hunger, but of ownership. The mountains belong to the beast, and all who tread them do so at its mercy. Legends claim the roar has been heard for centuries, long before settlers came. Indigenous stories tell of a great guardian of the peaks, whose voice was thunder and whose stride shook valleys. Whether guardian or predator, no one can say, but the stories warn never to mistake its cry for storm or quake. The land itself answers to the beast, and man is only guest in its kingdom. In rare instances, the roar has been heard below ground, rumbling through abandoned mines or caves. Explorers describe the sound as suffocating, filling every crevice until ears bleed. Rocks collapse, ceilings shudder, and lanterns shatter without wind. The underground magnifies the terror, making men believe the mountain itself will bury them alive. They never enter such places again. The aftermath of the roar lingers long after the sound fades. Animals remain restless, winds howl through valleys, and people struggle to sleep for nights afterward. Even silence feels corrupted, carrying the memory of what came before. The land itself seems altered, charged with a weight too heavy to shake. The roar is not a fleeting moment. It is an imprint that stains everything it touches. Those who hear the roar never forget it. It is burned into their memory with the clarity of trauma, sharper than gunfire, deeper than thunder. No distance from the mountains can erase it. No time dulls its edge. For the unlucky who stand in its path, it is more than sound, it is judgment. And judgment in the San Juans always comes from beneath the peaks, where the beast waits unseen. The San Juans are dotted with places where men once camped, yet no laughter or firelight lingers there now. Travelers who stumble upon them find canvas torn to ribbons, gear scattered as if tossed by storms, and fire pits smashed into cold rubble. No storm, no bear, no avalanche explains the damage. The destruction feels deliberate, a message scratched into the earth that no outsider belongs. At first glance, the wreckage resembles the aftermath of raiders. Supplies lie overturned, food spilled across the dirt, but valuables often remain untouched. Rifles left behind, coins gleaming in the dust. What thief passes over wealth and weapons? The answer chills survivors. It was no thief, but a force with no interest in gold, only in fear. Hunters who return to the ruins whisper of claw marks carved into tree trunks, deep grooves too wide for any mountain lion, some gouges stretched taller than a man, as if something stood upright to rake its fury into wood. Around the fire rings, soil is churned and scattered, as though massive weight pressed down in rage. The shadows of those nights remain long after the wreckage fades. Survivors describe waking to silence before the assault. The forest goes dead, even the wind holding its breath. Then comes the sound of branches snapping, heavy steps circling just beyond sight. Lanterns fail without reason, flames hissing into black, and then chaos erupts. Canvas collapsing, poles splintering, claws tearing through cloth. By the time men scramble out, their camp has become a graveyard of their own belongings. Some insist the attacks are meant to scatter, not kill. Hunters flee into the woods, running blind while the shadows follow. They report the sense of being herded, driven away from some unseen boundary. When they look back, the camp lies in ruin, glowing eyes flickering in the distance like coals. The beast does not need to strike flesh to make its point. The message is written in destruction. Not all escape. Companions vanish in the confusion, their bedrolls shredded but bodies missing. Searchers later find no blood, no drag marks, just absence. It is as though the shadows themselves swallowed the men whole. Survivors return to towns broken and pale, unable to describe more than the terror of tearing canvas and guttural growls. Their silence speaks louder than their words. The attacks leave a stench behind. Camps reek of musk and rot, a smell that clings to gear long after it is salvaged. Clothes must be burned, tools abandoned. The odor seems to seep into skin, haunting men even after they bathe. One survivor swore the smell followed him home, filling his cabin at night until he fled into town. Whatever stalks the camps leaves traces no soap can wash away. One chilling detail recurs: the prints around ruined campsites, massive tracks stamped deep into soil and stone, arranged in circles as though pacing. Some overlap human footprints, erasing them. Others lead away into the trees, vanishing into impossible terrain. Hunters who follow them rarely return, and those who do are not the same. Their eyes wander, their voices falter, and they never sleep soundly again. Campsites abandoned decades ago remain untouched, as if cursed. Locals avoid them, warning travelers never to pitch tents there. The ground feels too heavy, shadows stretch too long, and birds refuse to roost in nearby branches. Even snow falls strangely over those clearings, drifting in uneven shapes that suggest movement where none should be. The land remembers, and it warns. Legends claim the creature does not merely destroy camps, but studies them. Men report returning after brief hunts to find their gear rearranged, knives set in neat rows, packs unbuckled, ropes coiled tightly. Nothing is stolen, but the message is clear. Something with hands touched everything they owned. When night comes, fear does the rest. Few sleep after realizing they were inspected. Some stories tell of firelight revealing shapes that tower above men. Canvas walls ripple as if brushed by unseen claws. Figures shift just beyond the flames, too tall and broad to be human. Shouts scatter into the night, and when courage falters, silence returns. But the tents are already shredded. The beast does not strike in open view. It strikes from the blackness that men cannot pierce. The destruction is not always random. Some camps bear patterns cut into the dirt, circles of claw marks surrounding sleeping spots. Others find stones stacked into strange arrangements, cairns that no wind could have built. Survivors swear these are warnings, boundaries etched into their lives. They leave quickly, unwilling to test whether the symbols are merely threats or promises of something worse. There are accounts of fires doused mid-flame, waterless and sudden. Sparks vanish, wood blackens, and smoke dissipates as though swallowed. Without light, panic surges, men stumbling into claws they cannot see. The darkness becomes a weapon wielded with precision, suffocating courage in seconds. By dawn, what remains are smoldering embers and shredded canvas, proof that even fire cannot protect them. The attacks come without sound of approach. One moment, the night is still. The next, chaos erupts. Survivors insist the beast can move silently, despite its size, slipping between trees with unnatural grace. It chooses its moment carefully, striking when exhaustion dulls the senses. By the time men realize what surrounds them, it is already too late. The destruction is not wild. It is calculated. Not every camp is attacked outright. Sometimes men wake to find only subtle signs: ropes frayed, tools bent, lanterns cracked. These small sabotages build dread, leaving campers sleepless, waiting for the full assault. The creature seems to delight in unraveling them slowly, teaching fear one piece at a time. When the final strike comes, they are already broken, their courage scattered like their tents. Animals tethered near camps suffer the worst. Horses thrash themselves half to death, tearing ropes in desperation to escape. Dogs are found whimpering, their eyes wide and wild, refusing to return to the clearing, even by force. The beast does not need to kill them. it breaks them with terror. And when their panic spills into the men, the camp is already lost. Locals tell of campsites discovered long after attacks, still bearing signs of violence. Cloth hangs shredded in trees, like warning banners. Poles snapped and driven into the dirt as though planted. The scene feels staged, theatrical, as if meant to be witnessed. Travelers who find these ruins feel eyes on them, watching their reactions. They rarely stay long enough to test if the watcher is still there. Some believe the beast attacks camps to send a message to intruders. This land is not theirs. Others believe it plays with prey, driving them into panic before the true hunt begins. In either case, the result is the same. Fear spreads across valleys, keeping men away from the peaks. The mountains remain its dominion, secured not by fences, but by terror. The destruction has patterns that suggest intelligence. Gear is not just scattered but positioned, bedrolls torn in halves, packs gutted and hung from branches. The scene resembles art more than chaos, though it is painted in violence. Survivors argue whether this is cruelty or communication, but neither conclusion brings comfort. Either way, they know they are dealing with more than an animal. Whispers from old miners tell of camps obliterated with such force that stone itself cracked, boulders shifted, tents crushed beneath their weight, yet no sign of avalanche or quake explained the ruin. Instead, claw marks etched into the rock itself stood as the only evidence. To destroy canvas is one thing. To shatter stone is another. The beast left its power carved into the earth. Camps that fall victim often share one trait. They are too close to water. Lake shores, riversides, and alpine streams seem to invite attacks. Survivors note how the roar of water masks the approach, hiding every step until the strike begins. Perhaps the beast prefers hunting where sound betrays nothing, or perhaps it claims the water as its own. In either case, campers who choose those sites rarely sleep through the night. Nightmares haunt those who live through the attacks. They dream of canvas tearing, of claws raking their skin, of shadows stretching across their beds. Some wake screaming, convinced the destruction has followed them home. Their families whisper of men changed, hollow-eyed and broken. It seems the beast does not only shred canvas, it shreds the mind, leaving nothing whole. In rare instances, men who fled returned later with courage bolstered by numbers. They found their camps exactly as they left them, shredded and silent. But what unsettled them most was the absence of tracks. The ground lay smooth, as though wiped clean. Even the claw marks on trees seemed faded. The destruction had not vanished, but its maker erased the evidence of itself, leaving only terror as proof. Campsites remain as scars across the San Juans, reminders of nights when the mountains struck back. Each ruin tells the same story. Shadows that moved, claws that tore, voices that growled from nowhere. The beast claims its territory not with walls but with wreckage. And when the next fire burns in its domain, the pattern will repeat, for the shadows never rest and the camps will always fall. The ridge cuts like a blade across the San Juans, narrow and treacherous, a path no wider than a man's shoulders in places. Travelers describe the unsettling sensation of walking its spine, sky yawning on both sides, the ground distant and unforgiving. Wind lashes at them, carrying strange moans that echo far too human. Many have crossed it, but not all have returned. Those who vanish leave no trace but fear. Old records tell of prospectors who attempted the crossing in the late 1800s, eager to shorten their route. Their companions waiting below never saw them again. Weeks of searching revealed no broken bodies at the base, no scattered gear, no explanation. The ridge swallowed them whole, and their names joined the growing list of men erased by the mountains. Locals learned to avoid the place, but whispers persisted. Strange signs marked the approach. Stones stacked in peculiar formations line the trail, balanced too carefully to be accidents. Some resemble crude cairns, but others twist into spirals, pointing directly toward the ridge. Those who see them argue whether they are warnings or invitations, but either way, unease sinks deeper with every step. By the time the ridge rises ahead, the ground feels cursed. Travelers often report sudden silences before the vanishing begins. Birds stop calling, insects still their hum. Even the wind seems to hesitate. In that unnatural quiet, footsteps echo louder than they should, bouncing strangely against the stone. Men feel exposed, as though eyes watch from every angle. Then, without struggle, someone ahead simply disappears. One moment they walk, the next they are gone, leaving companions frozen in disbelief. Searchers crawl along the ridge after such vanishings, convinced their friends fell. Yet no broken stone shows signs of impact. No dirt shifts into landslides. No torn fabric catches on rock. The path remains pristine, indifferent to loss. Some swear they hear faint voices below, calling weakly for help, but ropes lower into the abyss return empty. Whatever takes them does not return them. Legends grow darker with each vanishing. Some say the ridge itself is alive, opening cracks that close around the unlucky. Others insist something waits in the mist, invisible but hungry, plucking men from the line one at a time. Survivors speak of shadows crossing ahead too fast to follow, before their companions vanish behind them. Whatever the truth, the ridge has a hunger that cannot be denied. Guides refuse to lead strangers across, even when offered riches. They know the history too well. Hunters, trappers, miners, even soldiers lost without trace. The military once surveyed the path, hoping to build a lookout post. The project ended abruptly after men disappeared during construction. Their records mention interference beyond explanation before the ridge was abandoned to silence once more. Campers near the ridge describe hearing footsteps in the night, pacing along the path though no one is there. The sound continues for hours, measured and deliberate, as if someone endlessly walking back and forth. In the morning, new prints appear on the trail, massive and deep, leading to the very edge before stopping. The tracks defy reason. No man could press so heavy, and no man should walk where the prints lead. The ridge seems to breed hallucinations. Travelers describe companions who appear to wave from ahead, smiling as they call out. Yet when the group rushes forward, the figure dissolves into mist. Others report hearing familiar voices from behind, urging them to turn back, only to find the trail empty. These visions lure the mind into dangerous steps, closer to edges no one survives. Some vanishings occur in plain sight. Witnesses swear they watch their friends stumble, yet never fall. Instead, their bodies blur, fading into the air as if erased by unseen hands. The spot they stood upon remains solid, stone as unmoving as ever. The survivors leave quickly after such horrors, unable to reconcile what they saw with the world they knew. Animals refuse the ridge outright. Horses balk at the approach, refusing to step forward even under whip. Dogs growl and whimper, tails tucked, staring into the mist with eyes wide. Hunters note that even deer and elk avoid the spine, circling far around to reach valleys beyond. The ridge seems abandoned by life, except for the presence that claims its prey. Legends among locals claim the ridge demands tribute. Every few years, someone must vanish, or the mountains grow restless. They speak of storms stronger than any recorded avalanches that bury villages and rivers, flooding valleys whenever the quota is not met. Whether coincidence or curse, the fear remains. Better one lost stranger than an entire town swallowed by wrath. At night, the ridge is worse. Moonlight paints it silver, but shadows deepen into voids on either side. Some swear the darkness rises like a tide, creeping closer until the path itself feels narrower. Whispers drift through the black, urging tired men to rest, to step aside. Those who listen vanish into silence, leaving behind nothing but startled cries cut short. There are stories of men reappearing briefly after vanishing, seen days later on the ridge by passing groups. These figures look gaunt, eyes hollow, clothes ragged, yet they say nothing. They simply walk the trail endlessly, ignoring shouts and pleas. When approached, they dissolve into mist, leaving behind only the impression of despair. Some say these are the lost, trapped forever between worlds. The ridge confuses navigation. Compasses spin wildly. Maps prove useless, and familiar landmarks seem to shift. Hikers who think they've crossed halfway find themselves back at the start, their steps erased. Others swear the ridge stretches longer than it should, dragging hours into days. Time feels fractured there, and the vanishings feed on the disorientation, striking when exhaustion breaks the will. Hunters who attempt to mark the path with chalk or rope find their signs undone by morning. Chalk lines vanish, ropes unravel, stones set in place scatter as if kicked. Something resists permanence on the ridge, refusing to allow men to claim or tame it. Even carved initials fade unnaturally fast, as though the stone itself rejects memory. The ridge remains its own, untouched by human claim. Some insist that shadows themselves are the culprits. At certain hours, the sun casts long shapes across the path, stretching like fingers to the other side. Men swear the shadows grasp, pulling at boots, clutching ankles until they stumble. In those moments, a misstep means disappearance, though no fall is ever witnessed. The mountain absorbs them, shadows dragging them into depths unseen. Legends say the ridge hides doorways, rifts where the world thins. The vanishings, they argue, are not deaths but crossings, men slipping into realms not meant for human feet. The hollow-eyed figures glimpsed later are proof, echoes of the lost bleeding back into sight. Whether curse or portal, the truth remains unsolved, and the ridge continues to take. Survivors describe the air as heavy along the trail, pressing into lungs with unnatural weight. Breathing grows harder, hearts pound faster, as though the ridge itself resonates. The San Juans stand as they always have, silent, towering, and unforgiving. Yet within their shadows lingers a presence that cannot be explained away. Torn camps, chilling roars, and vanishing lives all trace back to a beast that refuses to stay hidden. Some call it myth, others call it madness, but the mountains have kept their secret for generations. And as long as people continue to wander into the high valleys, the question will remain, are they exploring nature or stepping straight into Bigfoot's hunting ground?